Let's look now at number 9 in our series on the Great Controversy. This one's entitled The Foundation of God's Government. A very important concept, because that is really where the devil attacked God. He was basically saying, God, I can do a better job of running the universe than you can. I don't think much of your methodology. I don't think much of your character. Your government is a dictatorial one, and I'm a freedom fighter. You can imagine the kind of stories he would have been telling. So let's look at the foundation of God's government. We're given Revelation 14, 6 to 12, familiar verses for us. Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, Daniel, and Revelation 12 as well. I like that quote from John Wycliffe. You can hear echoes of that later on in terms of what was the cry of the revolution here in the US. The Bible is for the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The Bible. And I like that kind of phrasing. Wycliffe, of course, way before that, 600 years before, those words were written down over here, talking about what it's for. What is government for? What is God's government for? Well, we can talk about security, we can talk about enforcing laws and things like that when we think about our own government, especially here in America. But what are we really talking about when we talk about God's government? Well, we're talking about the government of God expressing his nature and his character. He can't be bribed. He can't be corrupted. He's always going to do what's right and what's fair, what's just. This is the kind of person he really is. So when we think about God's government, we need to examine exactly what he has said and done. And so go right back to the beginning there in Genesis, see how he operates, and then all the way through the Bible as you see, and ask yourself the question, how does this express God's way of governing? What is it like? Does he invite other people in? And I think the answer is always yes, because he wants people to agree with him that right is right, wrong is wrong, and that there are consequences to whatever decisions that you make. God is trying to help us here. Now, when you compare that to earthly governments, well, you see a vast difference, don't you? In history, many of the governments were dictatorial. They were oppressive. They persecuted people and so on. Still today, we see some of that. We can't say that there's a really truly good and honest and right kind of government. That's why we look forward to God's government. Now, on the other side, what does Satan's government look like? Well, it's based on a lie to start with. It's based on the use of force, of violence, compulsion. You look at Revelation and the beasts that come along there, the beast from the sea, the beast from the land, the dragon. It's all about compelling people even to worship. And as you think about that, you say, okay, God never did that. That's not the basis for his operation, for his government. He has never tried to compel us. He invites us to choose, which is why he gave us free choice in the first place. Why? Because he wants his government to be based not on the rule of law in the sense of imposing it, but to invite us to agree with him, as I say, that right is right, that wrong is wrong, and that the basis for this is love for one another, that God loves us and we love him in return. That's what God's government is really all about. And I want to reference George Otis Jr. It's interesting how some theologians have agreed with our kind of perspective. Some theologians insist on presenting a vindictive God who demands a payment before he will forgive. Surely this is an obvious contradiction of Jesus' parable on forgiveness, where the man who was forgiven his debt solely on the basis of compassion without payment of any kind. God always wanted to forgive. That's the kind of God we believe in. That's the kind of government that he wants to establish here in us and through all the ceaseless ages of eternity. May we be there, each and every one of us, to experience God's good government.